In Brazil, candidate Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva and Jair Bolsonaro performed mass activities in the city of Sao Paulo on the last day before the presidential election. In the UK, citizens marched this Saturday in rejection of energy tariff and announced will stop paying their bills. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, condemned this Saturday the military coup in Burkina Faso. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And in Brazil, candidate Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva and Jair Bolsonaro performed mass activities in the city of Sao Paulo on the last day before the presidential election. Lula da Silva's followers will gather early in the morning in the emblematic Avenida Paulista to accompany the leader of the Worker Party in a walk through the city of Sao Paulo. It is expected that during the event, Lula will be accompanied by the candidate for governor of the state of Sao Paulo and ex-principal Fernando Harana and his formula for vice president Gerardo Almig. For his part, more than 5 kilometers away, the current President Bolsonaro will leave with a motorbike caravan traveling through various points until arriving at the false corridor of Bagatelle, where he will lead a speech. On the last day before the presidential elections in Sao Paulo, Brazil, it's taking place the biggest political parade ever seen in the city by former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. Our correspondent Brian Mir has the details.
I'm currently walking up Augusta Avenue, where one of the largest political parades in the history of the city of Sao Paulo has just taken place. Lula, along with vice presidential candidate Geraldo Alckmin and gubernatorial candidate Fernando Haddad, sat in an open vehicle surrounded by mobs of people, swarms of cameramen, thousands of people waving flags, members of the social movements, the labor unions that form the core coalition of the Workers' Party, and other allied parties such as PSOL, PSB, and the other members of the federation that are backing Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva for president tomorrow in what promises to be one of the most complicated elections in recent history, but an election in which the former president has a commanding lead. Another poll came out today, putting him within striking distance of getting the 50% plus 1 votes he needs to take the presidency in the first round tomorrow. So the mood here in Sao Paulo is jubilant among the followers, the millions of followers of Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva and the Workers' Party, and all of the things that this represents in terms of national development and sovereignty for Brazil.
The Nicaraguan government has immediately and imminently broke diplomatic relations with the Netherlands over its repeated interventionism and neocolonialism position. This is confirmed by the communique of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Government of Reconciliation and National Unity of Nicaragua. The document adds that the European country continues to offend Nicaraguan families with threats and suspension of work of common goods as hospitals for populations with special requirements for assistance. The document also confirms the colonialism tone in the European country and reminds them that the world does not forget crimes against humanity they have committed.
And that we have said to the ambassador, and that we say to the government. Here, in this land, in this homeland, our flag is respected. The flag defended by our Sandino general. And the one who comes here to disrespect our people, our homeland, so he doesn't return to our country. We don't want relations with that interventionist government.
In Venezuela, the second group of crew of the Emtrasur company aircrafts arrived kidnapped by Argentine justice with aircraft, and 5 other crew remain detained without any justifications. The second group, consisting of 2 members of the entire crew, is composed of the Venezuelan citizen Jose Contreras Garcia and the Iranian Mohammad Khoskrat Hafgad. The fact comes just after Judge Federico Villena determined the dismissal of the case and all the proceedings in force on both crew members. With this event, there are 14 released in the framework of an arbitrary judicial process, which has not demonstrated responsibility nor the veracity of the accusations against any of those involved. The province of Pinar del Rio, the most affected by Hurricane Ian, received help from professionals from various territories of the country, as well as the solidarity of Venezuela and Mexico. The president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, said during the recovery after the damage caused by Ian, the country has received support from international organizations, small and medium-sized enterprises, and governments of the region. The Cuban president also reported the nations like Mexico supported with 72,000 meters of cable, 7,000 insulators, and other essential resources of the recovery of the essential system, while Venezuela shipped 300,000 bags of food, 52 electrical transformers, and 22,500 square meters of roof covers. Various sectors of Cuban civil society are working to bring supplies to Pinar del Rio, the province most affected by the Hurricane Ian. This is what a sociocultural project Kisi Cuaba does, together with private workers and several ministries. Yesterday, the President Miguel Díaz-Canel mentioned that the country has received support from the international organizations, small and medium-sized enterprises, and governments of the region, where Venezuela will deliver 300,000 bags of food supplies, and Mexico supported with 72,000 meters of cable, 7,000 insulators, and other essential resources, as we said before.
This is exquisite motivation. The principal motivation is to be together, is to help, is to offer a mutual support only for love. Thinking another one is the principal motivation. In our patrimony, in our homeland, we have many conditions for to be help people, for to send a hand for the people in special disability, in special vulnerabilities.
In the U.S., Hurricane Ian rapidly degraded to a post-tropical system on Friday, shortly after the landfall in South Carolina. According to the last report of the National Hurricane Center, Ian is moving north at a speed of about 34 kilometers per hour. That is forecast to move inland tonight east of its before heading to Virginia, where it is expected to dissipate. Ian is also expected to generate heavy rains with risk of flooding and overflowing rivers, in addition to waves, currents in the sea, and threat of tornadoes. And we'll take our first break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different format, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In the UK, citizens marched this Saturday in rejection of energy tariff. Meanwhile, a protest movement announced that hundreds of thousands will stop paying their bills. These demonstrations are coordinated by numerous social organizations and trade unions that will take place over the weekend in various cities of the country, are given in a framework of the increase of the average annual energy bill for the households, which went from 1,000 971 points to 2,500 as October, which represents a total of $2,790. Indeed, at a time when the cold season comes to a control given the situation, some 200,000 households have promised to stop paying the bills until the government does more to protect the most vulnerable families. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin gave a speech in the framework of the accession of the territories of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia to the Russian Federation. The head of state received the leaders of the new Russian regions in a ceremony in the Kremlin to make incorporation official, and stressed during his speech that the referendums demonstrated the will of these people to exercise the inalienable right, ensuring in Article 1 of the UN Charter to become part of Russia again. He recalled that during the conflict, many people died in defense of the right to speak their language and live within their culture. In reaction to Putin's signature to the accession decree, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, submitted an application for rapid accession to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. The Ukrainian president assured that de facto they are already part of NATO in an expeditious manner. However, the military alliance indicated Kiev will need to meet a number of long-term requirements to join. In June 2020, Ukraine became the sixth state to receive status of partner of the bloc after the Ukrainian parliament voted in 2019 to modify the constitution and consolidate membership in the European Union and NATO. In the U.S., White House Security Advisor Jake Sullivan declared that Ukraine's entry into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is an issue for another time, although they will continue to supply weapons for the conflict. During a press conference, Sullivan said that although the U.S. supports NATO's open door policy, it considers that the process for Ukraine to become a member of the alliance is not currently a priority issue. In parallel, he indicated that the best way to support Kiev at this time is through practical support on the ground. He assured that Washington will continue to provide military assistance to Ukraine with the signing of a provision by Congress that includes more than $12 million in additional funds for this purpose. The Secretary General of the Alliance, Jens Stoltenberg, recalled that the decision must be taken with the approval of the 30 member countries and those who aspire to join the military bloc. In this context, the U.S. media revealed this Saturday that the U.S. Department of Defense is preparing to deploy a command center in Germany to monitor manage the conflict in Ukraine in coordination with its EU and NATO allies. According to the New York Times, the mission is scheduled to include at least 300 people who will station at the European Army headquarters in the German city. Likewise, the newspaper stated that a final decision will be taken in the coming weeks. For its part, the Pentagon allocated a new military aid package to Ukraine valued more than $100 million and including 18 precision artillery systems, more than 150 Humvees and transport vehicles. We have more news coming up after this financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The Economic Community of West African State ECOWAS condemned this Saturday the military coup in Burkina Faso, ensured that they have a broken progress achieved through diplomatic. The group of soldiers headed by the captain of the army, Ibrahim Traoré, announced in September the 30th the dismissal of the interim government. The African bloc has considered the operation as ultimately and condemned in the strongest terms. The violent seizure of power occurred this week. Both ECOWAS and the African Union have suspended participation in the country pending the restoration of constitutional order. In Nigeria, presidential candidates began the campaign for next February elections in an open race to replace President Muhammadu Buhari. Less than 5 months before the elections, no clear favorite has emerged in the race. There are a total of 18 candidates registered in the contest, but only 4 start activities this Friday. Since the return to democracy following the military government in 1999, elections in Nigeria have been marked by violence, delayed, alleged fraud, and challenges to the judicial body. A handful of Afghan women protested the killing of a student in an education center in a shining neighborhood of Kabul, carrying banners reading in English and reading "Stop Hassan Genocide." The protesters demand security for the Taliban government. In the CAG Education Center, staff cleared the vacant casa by the attack, while victims' families search through bloody belongings. The attack on the CAG Educational Center, which happened on Friday while students were taking an exam for university entrance preparation, killed at least 19 people, mostly female students, and wounded 17 others, according to Taliban government officials. But eyewitnesses gave a different account of the death toll, saying it was more than 200. The suicide bombing was the latest in the steady stream of violence since the Taliban has power. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the attack.
First, the attacker was just over there, where a huge crowd of students were standing, and he opened fire. At least 40 people were killed there. Those who say only 19 were killed is wrong. Then, when people were trying to escape, the other attacker exploded his explosives here. So I think around, or maybe even more than 200 people were killed.
13 people were rescued on Saturday after 3 buildings collapsed in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. It's believed that 17 people were inside the building when it came down. The Iraqi Ministry of Interior issued a statement saying that so far civil defense teams had rescued 13 people from the wagons while work was ongoing to find those still missing. The building, which has several laboratories, was located in Baghdad's Al-Wati Square. The Vietnam-Cuba Business Promotions Forum concludes this Friday with the signing of 7 agreements for an amount of $500 million. The event, organized with more than 10 local companies in the context of the visit of the Cuban Prime Minister Miguel Marrero to the Asian nation, grants a new surface right in Cuba to the implementation of a first 20 megawatts in a photovoltaic solar part of the 150 megawatts committed by 2023. In addition, an agricultural livestock project is to be developed in a special area, as well as supplied and cooperation initiative in the biopharmaceutical field. And with that story, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We are on Facebook and Twitter and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.